Welcome to the Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, the go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into natural wellness, holistic healing, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause, working through chronic conditions, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science backed insights, powerful stories, and soul nourishing inspiration. So if you're a woman, 40 or 50 or older, looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today's guest is James Oliver. James is the founder and CEO of Atlas Bar. James took Atlas from zero to over 1 million in sales without a cent of outside funding, building everything from scratch and selling millions of bars nationwide to people seeking genuinely clean nutrition. What makes his story remarkable, when James couldn't find a protein bar that met his standards, he made one with his mom and paid for his first production run by completing over 3,000 Uber rides. Every Atlas bar packed 20 grams of protein and just 1 gram of sugar and absolutely no artificial ingredients. A standard James stands behind so seriously that he once ran 100 miles in 6 days, fueled solely by his own bars to prove it. James offers more than the usual founder narrative. He's a thoughtful communicator with real insight into what makes our food environment so challenging, how to build lasting customer trust, and why metabolic health matters beyond just the marketing buzzwords. He also knows what it takes to grow a purpose driven company in an industry full of shortcuts. So, without further ado, James, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you, James?
I'm good. I'm good. How are
Nice to
you?
meet you.
Likewise. Likewise.
I'm super excited to have you on, and I'm excited to jump into this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and to jump into it too.
You're very welcome. So, your story starts in a very relatable place. You were frustrated with products that were on the market, right? So, can you take us back to the moment when you realized no protein bar met your standards? What was going through your mind at that point? Because I've been there too. I look at the labels as well. So, what was going on in your mind with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's where a lot of products and companies start is you're looking to scratch your own itch, so to speak.
Yeah.
Something doesn't exist and you want it for yourself and you figure, well, if I want this, other people might want it as well. So it was the exact same thing for me. I was a huge consumer of bars and it was honestly very simple. I was just kind of in disbelief that it didn't exist because all I wanted was something that had clean ingredients that I could recognize and that didn't have a lot of sugar and that had adequate protein. And it didn't exist. It sounds very obvious when you say it, like, well, yeah, why wouldn't that exist? And it just didn't. So unfortunately, I didn't actually set out to start a company. I just wanted this for myself. And then once I made it for myself, I was like, well, I think others might want this too. But I didn't, the initial idea was basically just to solve my own problem. And then once I did that, I realized that, oh, this actually could be something that could turn into a company.
Yeah, because a lot of people will just say, oh, a protein bar, and just automatically assume that the ingredients are all healthy and they don't even turn it over to look at the ingredient list. So that's really important that you had that in your mind. So you financed your first production run with over 3,000 Uber rides. And that's intense. What kept you motivated through that process, especially when most people might have given up at that point?
I think the driving emotion for me, it was a combination of fear and desire, two very powerful emotions. The desire because I wanted to build something that allowed me to control my own time and control my calendar and my destiny. But fear because I was like, I need to make this work because I really don't want to go work for somebody else. So I'm going to do everything that I can to try and make this work. And I also believed, I just very strongly believed that knowing the other companies that were successful, and I would actually do this when I was feeling down. I would go to the store and I would buy a competitor, a competitor that, not a specific one, it would depend on the day, but I would buy that competitor and then I would have it and I'd be like, okay, if this competitor can be a multi-hundred million dollar company with this product, then I can at least make a company that has like a fraction of that success with my own product. So it was a combination of things that kept me going. It was the desire to want to control my own destiny, the fear of having to kind of work for somebody else and kind of getting stuck in that world, and just the belief that something could be successful, something that I was creating could be successful given the other things that I saw and their success.
Yeah. But building a company from scratch is really no small feat, right? I mean, there's a lot involved. So what was one of your first major challenges that you faced when launching the Atlas Bar? And how did you overcome it?
Well, the very first challenge was I remember getting the shipment. And it's something that I just didn't even think about. It was coming on a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was going to be delivered to my house or my parents' house, really. But they didn't have a loading dock to receive it because the tractor trailer, it's like 4 feet or 3 or 4 feet, the back of it is. And you need to have it come up to a loading dock so you can just roll it off. And there was no loading dock. So the very first problem, I guess, started before we even made $1 of sales, and that was figuring out how to just get the product off the truck. So I called one of my friends who had a loading dock and I asked if I could receive the shipment there and borrow it. So I did. We used their loading dock, got it off the truck, and then I loaded the product once it was off the truck into my car. And
Wow.
yeah, and so the problems started early, and they haven't slowed down since. But that's really what it is. As you said, it's no small feat, and really all you're doing when you're starting a company is you're just solving problem after problem. And that sounds like almost a negative thing, but it's not. It's really just problem solving. You're like, okay, we got to figure out how to produce this. We got to figure out how to increase the margin on this, or how to market this, or who we're marketing to. And it's all just problem solving in just various areas. And the reason it's challenging is because you have to solve a lot of problems
Yeah.
simultaneously, and they're all fairly unrelated. Like there are some problems that are financial, there are some that are branding, there are some that are customer based. Like if a customer, this happened where a customer they met, I remember in the first like month or two, they sent an email and I remember my heart just like sank, and they had found it was a small piece of it, whether it was like a nutshell or something like that in the product, and they had sent an image of it, and I had never had to deal with that before. Like, how do I deal with a customer who like bit down on a piece of nut fragment?
Oh,
So that's very different than figuring out, okay, where do I get the money to create the product. And so it's yeah, it's just a lot of different problems that you have to think through, and I think you really need to have a desire to solve problems and be able to do it quickly and under uncertainty, because that's what you're doing a lot of the time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you got lucky when you found a friend who had a loading dock. I don't know too many people who have friends that. So, yeah, I mean, it's overcoming challenge after challenge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
especially in the beginning. So let's go on to talk about the product and the nutrition philosophy. Each Atlas bar packs 20 grams of protein, which is 1 gram of sugar. So, how did you decide on that formula? Did you experiment with a lot of different ingredients, or was it more just your own intuition and experience at that point?
Well, it was because I was a consumer of the category and I was thinking about what wasn't going to change with people. And so, what I mean by that is, I was like, well, I think people are not ever really going to say, well, this tastes great, but I wish it had more sugar in it. Like, I don't think that people are going to be like, this is a great product, but I wish it had more sugar. And so then I was like, okay, well, I think one of the core pillars should be low sugar, like as little sugar as possible. And then I also was like, well, I also don't think that people are ever going to be like, well, this is a great product, but I wish it had more processed, more artificial ingredients. So then another pillar became, okay, well, let's use natural ingredients. And then the third one was obviously it had to have a solid amount of protein because it was a protein bar. So then just kind of logically and naturally, the three pillars became high protein, low sugar, and clean ingredients. And it was, yeah, it was very, like very logical. And it was also just what I wanted for myself. I wanted something that, like, I've already had two today. I'll probably end up having 4 to 6 today. So I wanted something that I would feel comfortable consuming every single day, multiple times a day. And really, the only way that that was going to happen was if it didn't have a lot of sugar, if it had good protein, it had good ingredients. So that's, yeah, it's not, it's just like very, very logical. Like I remember doing this in my dorm room as I thought about this.
Wow. So you talk about clean nutrition. For our listeners, what are some common misconceptions about protein bars or healthy snacks that people should watch out for?
Well, I think one common misconception is that there's no actual universal definition of health. So, what I mean by that is that there's no regulatory body that says this is what is healthy and this is not what's healthy.
Mhm.
So, because of that, you have such a wide variety of products that all say that they're healthy on it. And it's really up to the brand to decide whether or not they want to use the word this is healthy for them. So it's for that reason, there's just a tremendous amount of confusion in the world of packaged foods over what is good and what is not, because you have all these brands that are saying these different things, saying this is good for you, saying that this has heart healthy ingredients, but maybe it has a lot of sugar, but it has heart healthy ingredients. So does that make it healthy? I remember thinking through this again a lot when I was younger. I remember I remember thinking about how this was in like the 2000s, and I remember people at the time were like, fat is bad. And I was like, okay, so
Yeah.
people say that fat is bad, but people also say that fruits and vegetables are good. And an avocado is technically it's a fruit, but
Right.
it's full of fat. So if fat is bad, but fruit are good, and avocado is a fruit full of fat, then what is it? Like how, and so I just remember thinking a lot about these things because like I just wanted to basically have clarity for myself. And so I really like, I remember early on being like, well, I think a general rule is that the closer you can get to the food, meaning like the less processed it is, that's a hard kind of philosophy to find any holes in. It's hard to say that if you only have real food, you're going to end up unhealthy. So that was always kind of a guiding tenet. So that's going back to your question on what is healthy. I would say that the fewer the ingredients, just a very general rule of thumb is like fewer ingredients is usually better, and the more recognizable ingredients. So basically, less ingredients and more recognizable ingredients will usually mean the product is better for you. If you see a product that has 50 ingredients and half of them end in oxide or other suffixes that you don't know how to pronounce,
Right.
odds are it's probably not the best thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer to that question. Metabolic health is often a buzzword too. So, how do you define that in practical terms? And why is it so central to the Atlas Bar's mission?
So I'll start with the second part of that. There's It's not really talked about that much in these terms, but we are right now living through what could be called the largest health crisis in modern history. And that is the kind of chronic disease crisis, where tens of millions of people, I think the number last year was about 40 million people died from preventable chronic disease,
Wow.
which is a enormous number. Like if you put it into context of some of the world wars, I think in the deadliest year of World War II, I think there were like 14 million deaths, which is a crazy amount of people. But we now have that happening every single year, multiple times that happening every single year from chronic disease. And a lot of it is due to nutrition, metabolic disease, meaning type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. And when I say metabolic health or talking about metabolic health, there's a lot of factors to that. But one major factor is your body's ability to regulate glucose, because if you lose that ability, that's when you have insulin resistance, you can develop type 2 diabetes from that. So there's just a huge need for food products that people can enjoy that don't contribute to the glucose dysregulation that so many people experience. And we just completed a clinical study, which I was proud of that we had done. It was the first one that we did, but because I want to make sure that what we say about our product is true and is validated. So what we did is we ran a study with our product, and we found really one of the premier labs in the world that does this. And they did a full clinical study, and they recruited subjects, and they tested our product against the basis, the kind of reference point that's universally used is a slice of bread.
Mhm.
So they tested, or I'd say white bread in general, they tested Atlas against white bread, and Atlas had our peanut butter chocolate chip flavor had a 77% lower glucose response than a equivalent amount of white bread. So it basically has the same response as like 1/4 to 1/3 of a slice of bread. So very, very little. And it was really cool to see that because I had expected it, and from my own experience, that was what I had experienced and what I'd found out. But to have it validated by a study was really cool to see.
Yeah. Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a market that is filled with shortcuts, right? That happens all the time. How do you maintain quality and consistency, especially as your production ramps up and scales?
Well, it's funny you ask because I'm actually spending the week at our production facility right now. So I'm literally sitting at our production facility as we have this conversation. So we don't do our own production. I would like to one day, but right now we work with a what's called a co-manufacturer who does our production for us. So the first thing is we work with a really good co-manufacturer. When we initially were looking for who could help us manufacture our product, we looked at every single one in the country. It was, I think, close to 100 of them. And then we basically interviewed them just like you would interview candidates, and you
Hmm.
whittle it down until we got to three left. And then we talked to those three, and we ended up choosing this one. So we make sure that we have a really good co-manufacturer who gets inspected by the FDA, by all the various regulatory bodies. So they're really good. And then we are physically on site for every single production run that we do to ensure that while they're really good, nobody knows our product as well as we do. So if we're here, we can just ensure that we're making it up to our standards. So it's definitely challenging, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate how difficult it is to go from making, say, cookies in your kitchen to making a dozen cookies in your kitchen, 12 cookies in your kitchen is very different than making 12,000 cookies in a
Yeah.
facility. It's very, very different.
Yeah, going from 0 to 1 million in sales without funding, that's really impressive. How do you prioritize resources and make critical decisions when every dollar matters?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And as one of my advisors told me, one of my mentors, the primary role, if you're a CEO, your primary role is to in his words, allocate capital, which is basically just money and people. You have to choose, as you said, like you have to allocate resources in the way that is going to help the company the best. And there's so many different things you can do. You can, should I spend money on email? Should I spend money on sampling? Should I get a salesperson? Like it's overwhelming the amount of opportunities and the amount of ways in which you can spend your resources. So that's why it's really important to have a clear strategy and a clear vision, because if you have a clear strategy and if you say, okay, I know that I'm selling to Susan and I'm not selling to Bob, so I can just throw out, I don't even have to consider all of the different marketing strategies that I would use to reach Bob, because I know that Susan goes to this gym and lives in this area, so I can just focus on marketing initiatives that are going to try and reach Susan.
Right.
And I think it's that might be the biggest benefit, honestly, of having a clear strategy, is that it just helps focus where all of your resources and all of your attention go.
Right. Right. So looking back, now you look like a young guy, but what would you tell your younger self about entrepreneurship and being resilient and the grind of building something from scratch?
One thing that I didn't appreciate enough that I would tell myself is that not everything can be learned in a book,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And what I mean by that is starting out, I tried to learn as much as I could from others who have gone before me. So I'd read a lot of books, and I probably read like 20 or 30 different books from various people who had started food companies or who had started companies, just to try and learn and to know what I don't know, because it's really hard to anticipate what you don't know. So there's some problem, like
Yeah.
the example I gave earlier of the loading dock. Like I didn't, it wouldn't even cross my mind to think about the fact that I would need a loading dock to receive a shipment from a truck. So my goal with reading was to try and just make myself aware of all the things that could go wrong so I could proactively address them. But what I've learned is that you can intellectually understand something, you can read a book and you can understand a lesson, but until you actually experience that lesson, it's really hard to internalize and it's really hard to fully absorb it.
Yeah.
Like an example I would give is you can understand, like you could probably learn this in your first day of a business class, that money in, money out, you have to have enough cash in the bank. And obviously that makes sense. It's very intuitive, but it's very different when you're at the point where you're like, well, I don't have enough cash in the bank to pay this bill that's due in a few days, because that creates an emotional response in you. You have this fear, this dread. And I think in my experience that emotional kind of like pairing with the lesson, it almost embodies it into you. So you're like in the future, you're like, well, I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to feel that emotion again. So I'm going to make sure that that never happens again.
Yeah. So, what's one habit inside or outside of your business that you credit for your resilience and also your ability to keep pushing forward?
There's the physical side of things, which I think is really important. Your body does all the moving, your body does all the thinking, so you have to take care of it. So
Mhm.
getting good sleep, eating, eating well, making sure that I spend time, quality time with people who I care about too, because when things are going tough, and they will go tough if you are in entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
it's really helpful to have people around you who are there for you, who you can lean on as you're just getting thrown around by the waves of entrepreneurship. And then on the kind of mental side, I think just staying optimistic, and it can be difficult to do, especially in our day and age, but figuring out a way to just always keep your head up no matter what happens, so that you can keep marching forward and you can keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think that's really important to do, because you can't let pessimism get a hold of you. Not in life, but also especially not in entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah. That's really great advice because you have to expect, especially as a new company, there's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs and snafus and things going on. And I think it's really, really important that you stay grounded and focused on what you see as the ultimate goal and what's important for you in developing this company. I mean, you had a strong why to get it started, and now it's just keep pushing forward, right? And
Yeah.
keeping your head up high. And I think it's really commendable that, a lot of people will see something missing in the marketplace and say, I wish someone would make this. But for you to, say, I wish I could make this, and then have the fortitude and the drive to go ahead and do it, I think is really commendable. I really do. So, looking at the industry today, where do you see a real opportunity to shift the food environment for the better? Like, are you seeing more and more companies, let's say, who are making protein bars, trying to improve upon their ingredients?
Yeah, so I definitely have an answer to that. One other thing that I'll add to what you just said that I thought of is I think a lot of people they defeat themselves before they even start because they think they have to take this massive leap, this massive risk in order to start something. I was actually very risk averse and I took a very small step. To start it, I really put in a relatively small amount of money. I put in $5,000 of my money just to create the product. And I told myself, hey, we'll create the product. And if we sell through it all, then that's great and we'll keep going. And if not, if you're not able to sell any, then you'll have 5,000 protein bars that you have to eat yourself. And that was actually what I thought. And I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty comfortable with that downside. Like the worst case scenario is that I'll basically be eating protein bars for a year, which I'm fine with. But I think a lot of people, they think that they have to, quote unquote, like burn the boats. They have to quit their job and uproot their life and make this massive risk. And I haven't found that to be true. And I think that's some people's stories for sure. But I think there's an equal amount of people who just took this incremental approach where you test it, you see if there's a good response from the market. And if there is, then you just keep going. And if not, then you can pivot to something else. But just be trying things because time waits for no human.
Right.
Um,
So when you started this, did you have a career? Were you working another job at this point, or did you quit your job and get into this?
no, I started this while I was doing all of this while I was a student in school.
Oh,
So I was doing this, and then I think I graduated on like May 21st, and then the first shipment with that loading dock came in, I think on June 1st. So I started like a little over a week after I graduated from school, and I wanted to line it up that way because I wanted to just kind of go right into it. And I was just trying to make every day count. So I didn't take much time. But to your question on the industry, I do think that there's clearly a movement right now for cleaner label products. Right now, there's a movement for more protein and everything. I think that that is not going to sustain. Like when when Starbucks is putting protein in the cold foam, I think that I'm comfortable being like I don't think I think this is a kind of a frenzy. I don't think that this is going to be a long term trend. I do think that the though it's a short term kind of I hesitate to say bubble, but I'll say bubble, a short-term bubble in protein. I do think that there will be a long-term shift to more protein in products, but I think the broader thing that needs to happen, and that it is happening, but is cleaner label foods, foods that aren't made with as many processed ingredients. And I think a lot of consumers, they don't necessarily appreciate this, but companies respond to what consumers demand. So that's actually economics 101.
hmm.
And if consumers demand better products, companies will make those better products. And I'll give an example, which is Coca-Cola for the majority of Coca-Cola's existence, they have pushed Coca-Cola that's full of sugar as their main product. And now, especially in the States, they've started to push Coca-Cola Zero,
Yeah.
not because all of a sudden they're like, oh, we should sell a product that has zero sugar because it's better for people, but it's because people want products that have zero sugar. So to make sure that they stay in business over the next 100 years, Coca-Cola has shifted its strategy to now pushing products that are better for people because people have demanded that. So I think consumers should always keep in mind that they have power. It's very similar to a very similar to a democracy where the government, in this case the companies, they derive their power from the people that they serve. And it's cool to keep that in mind because you're like, oh yeah, I do have power as a consumer. I'm not just kind of at the whim of these companies.
Yeah. And people more and more today are concerned about achieving optimal wellness and staying healthy.
Yeah.
Where can people find your bars? Are they in retail stores, in gyms?
Right now, we primarily sell direct to consumers. So
Oh,
primarily through Amazon, through our website, through a couple of other websites like Walmart.com, Vitacost, iHerb. We're actually a pretty small team still, and
hmm.
we have a couple of things that I still want to improve on the product before we expand to a larger footprint. But yeah, for the time being, the majority of where we sell is online.
Oh, very cool. Okay. So Amazon, Walmart, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. So James, any final thoughts you'd like to leave my audience with today?
I would say that if there's something that you want to do, say to try and figure out a way to do it because time goes by quick and it feels like I blinked and I went from 20 to 30. So
Yes.
it doesn't get any easier to do as you get older. And that was actually something that I used to motivate myself to do it when I was early. I was like, you know what? It's only going to get harder. You're 21 or 22 now. It's only going to get harder the longer you wait. So it's really uncomfortable right now. It's scary, but just do it. Just start because you're going to regret not doing it more than you're going to regret doing it and failing at it. So
Absolutely.
that's what I would say. It's just time ticks by. So
Yes.
make the most of it.
I think it's commendable that you were 21 years old and you had the insight to create something for yourself, for your future, and also for consumers to be eating a healthier product. And I think it's wonderful. And I have a feeling that this is just the beginning for you.
That's the it's crazy because it feels like it's the end. It's crazy to say it's just the beginning, but I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? In the future, you may create more than just bars as far as, products adding to the line in some way.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I wish you the best of luck. I think it's really, really great what you're doing, and it's just wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and it was wonderful talking. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you all for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you could think of anyone that you know that would enjoy listening to this episode, kindly share it out with them. If you're not currently subscribed, please be sure to follow me here so each week when I drop a new episode, you can come on and learn more about your health and wellness and overall well-being. Until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now. Take good care, everyone.